Hey y'all. So, I'm being called to talk about these invisible chronic illnesses, many of which are autoimmune. The experience that I have is with type 1, and it is autoimmune, but it's not that kind of autoimmune, and it's absolutely a disability, though it's not considered that type of disability also. Now, in a lot of ways, this amazes me because as other autoimmune disorders typically have flares, type 1 is 24/7, 365. Okay, and as many people may not know, the difference between type 1 and type 2 is that with type 2, there is an insulin resistance where your body doesn't break down and absorb the insulin like a typical person's body would. In type 1, your pancreas does not produce insulin. So, this is not something that can be controlled with diet and exercise, though diet and exercise does affect the amount of insulin that you take. Okay, but I feel like the point is many people are misinformed or not educated on these invisible illnesses. Okay, and even for the person themselves, in many cases, until it starts to actually affect your health in some ways, you typically overlook it or ignore it, which is why some of the long-term effects can be so devastating. Now, typically, used to, one was either born type 1 or they were not. And usually they found that out in childhood. But there is adult onset. And so that's obviously where your pancreas worked fine in the beginning, or they may have seen signs that you could develop diabetes later, but eventually your pancreas stopped producing insulin. Now, the reason I don't understand why this is not considered a typical, regular disability, right, is because of the fact that, like I said, it is 24/7, 365. Whether you're asleep, whether you're awake, whether you're working, it doesn't matter what you're doing, right? You have got to be on top of your blood sugar numbers, and those typically can range if you are on insulin. Things like, I can drop anywhere between 60 and 100 points just by taking a hot shower. Just like things like stress and colds or getting any kind of sickness can elevate my blood sugar as well. And it is not always about what I'm putting into my body. So, in many ways, managing type 1, especially if you do not have some kind of transmitter and pump system, right, is a full-time job in itself. And then when you start compiling things like a household and kids and an actual job, or things that you have to do to survive in society, and be productive and produce some kind of legacy, it's a lot. Now, I'm not discrediting any other autoimmune disorder or chronic illness, okay? I am just simply speaking on type 1 because that is the one that I have the most experience with. I feel like it is the one who is most often overlooked, and it affects every minute of every day of your life, which can ultimately result in removal of limbs and things of that nature, which then you qualify for the disabled list. Whereas other autoimmune disorders are already classified autoimmune, like official autoimmune, and officially disabled. But the whole point is these are invisible disorders, right? Invisible chronic illness. And there is very little control over them. You can manage them, but you cannot have control necessarily on when they flare, or right, not ultimately, not complete control, unless you are finding ways to heal these things. And I do believe that there are ways to heal anything that you are not born with. In most cases. In other cases, we are living out consequences of sometimes other lifetimes. And so there are lessons there. But the point is for others, because in most cases we overlook and try to forget about these things ourselves unless we absolutely cannot. So it is very important to understand and realize that you have no idea what somebody is going through, what they're dealing with. And that goes beyond a physical level. But very much, if somebody is already dealing with something every day on a physical level, okay, it is going to affect their energy, their effort, their ability, okay, to do certain things at certain times, especially during a flare, okay? With us, type 1s, it's when our blood sugar gets low, we're gonna have to sit down. Things like that, okay? But just a little consideration, all right? A little compassion, a little empathy. In every instance, you don't know what other people are dealing with. Y'all have the best day.